My husband made me energy shakes every morning. "Sweetheart, it's for your own good," he said. That day, I swapped our glasses while he wasn't looking. What happened next changed everything. I always thought of myself as a practical woman, the kind who double-checks the iron before leaving the house, the kind who reads the fine print on insurance forms and doesn't believe in love at first sight, or any of that fairy tale nonsense. So when my husband, well ex now, handed me a glass of energy shake every morning with that bright-eyed smile, I didn't question it. I saw it as a reward, a small trophy for being a decent wife. "For you, babe. You're working too hard," he'd say with that soft look in his eyes that made my throat tighten. And yeah, I'd roll my eyes and grumble like I wasn't impressed. But secretly, I was kind of touched. Okay, more than kind of. I actually felt proud. I had a husband who noticed when I looked tired, who didn't just say, "You okay?" While scrolling on his phone, he actually did something about it. Sometimes I'd ask why he didn't drink the magical smoothie himself. He'd just wave it off. "Nah, I'm good. I made it for you. You need the boost." And I'd smile and raise the glass like some kind of toast to his thoughtfulness. So that morning, the one that changed everything, when I swapped our glasses, it wasn't out of suspicion. Not even a little. He'd been looking pale and kind of run down lately. I figured, hey, maybe he could use a boost for once. Maybe it'd help him as much as it supposedly helped me. I waited until he turned toward the coffee machine. Then I quickly switched the glasses and sat down like nothing happened. He came back, gave me a tired smile and took a big sip. And then, within seconds, his face went ghost white. He wobbled. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered. He grabbed the edge of the table like the ground had tilted beneath him, eyes locked on mine, wide and panicked. I jumped up. "Oh my God, are you okay?" I yelled, rushing over. He tried to say something, but all that came out was this awful, garbled sound. Then he just collapsed. I dropped to my knees beside him. He had a pulse. He was breathing. But his skin was ashy gray, his eyes shut tight, and my own heart was trying to punch its way out of my chest. All I could think was allergy, food poisoning, stroke. The word stroke started screaming in my ears. Not once, did it hit me that he'd just drunk the smoothie he made for me. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called 911, begging them to come fast. My brain was one big static mess repeating, "Please let him be okay. Please just get here." He kept fading in and out, mumbling nonsense, trying to sit up and then going limp again. I shoved a pillow under his head and just sat there, listening to every breath, every tiny sound. When the paramedics finally took him away, I was left in the kitchen, staring at the spilled shake in my overturned chair like I'd blacked out and walked into someone else's life. I picked up the glass from the floor. There was just a little bit of shake left inside. It smelled weird, faint but off. Not bad, just wrong. Maybe it went bad, I thought. But that was my glass. The one he made for me. That's when the thought landed, quiet, awful. And I immediately swatted it away like it was ridiculous. Coincidence, I told myself. Please just let it be a coincidence. Let it be anything but a stroke. I wandered around the house, trying not to spiral. At some point, I opened our old tablet. I wasn't even sure why. Maybe to distract myself. Find a movie, a show, a dumb recipe video. Something. But instead, I stumbled into a bunch of old emails. Nothing direct. Just little scraps, mentions of supplements, a warning to be careful not to raise suspicion. It read like someone being overly cautious about their wellness routine. Except my gut didn't read it that way. I closed the tablet like it had burned me. No, you're being paranoid, I told myself. It's probably about vitamins, or probiotics, or something completely boring and normal. But something had cracked open inside me in the glow of that screen. A tiny crack, barely noticeable. And the thing about cracks, they never stay small. My name is Anna Blake. I'm 38, lead architect at Wells & Partners in Chicago. I design homes for other people's lives. Somehow, I missed the fact that my own was falling apart. My husband Tom, yep, same one, worked with me at the firm. Always there, always supportive, always the guy who joked about my late-night deadlines and brought me coffee when I stayed too long at the model table. When my design got picked for a major housing project, he was the first one to hug me. "You earned this, Anna," he said. And I believed him. I believed we were a team on paper and off. that he was genuinely happy for me the same way I was happy for him. That night, I went to see him at the hospital. He looked pale, nervous, but he kept it together. Smiled when he saw me, although it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Must have been something I ate, he said. Weird reaction. No idea what to. I nodded, said all the right sympathetic things, kept my tone light, played the role of supportive wife. But deep down, something was scratching around in my chest like it was trying to dig its way out. I couldn't stop watching him. His voice, the way his hands twitched, how he wouldn't meet my eyes. All these little tells I hadn't even noticed I'd been cataloging over the years. When I got home, I went straight to the kitchen. I opened the top cabinet above the sink, the one he always told me not to touch. My supplements, he'd said. Don't mess with them. And there they were. Unlabeled jars. Brightly colored packets with Chinese writing. Odd-looking powders in see-through containers. One bag said, Energy Boosting Blend. And right under it in fine print, do not consume without medical supervision. Do not exceed recommended dosage. Potential side effects include fatigue, dizziness, confusion. I slammed the cabinet shut so hard a bottle of vitamins fell off the shelf. What the hell? I sat down at the table, ice crawling under my skin. If it had just been once, some freak reaction, a dumb mistake, a bad batch of protein powder, I might have brushed it off. But this wasn't new. I'd been running on fumes for months. Couldn't focus. Forgot my PIN at the grocery store. Forgot my own sister's birthday. And still I kept telling myself it was burnout. Just stress. But now the thought kept looping. This was meant for me. And I didn't want to believe that. 3 days later, Tom came home from the hospital. Still no real diagnosis. The paperwork said something vague. Possible allergic reaction. Possible sensitivity to unknown substances. No one knew for sure. Tom looked drawn, pale, but tried to act like everything was fine. Probably just work stress, he joked. Guess I've been pushing too hard. I smiled back, nodded, played my part. But something inside me had shifted. Behind the mask of care and concern, a cold, sticky suspicion had started to take root. He's hiding something. And once you start looking, you see it everywhere. The way he flinched when I dropped a spoon. How he froze if I walked into a room unexpectedly. The way he kept fiddling with his shirt cuffs whenever I stared at him too long. Before, I would have chalked it up to stress. Now, every twitch, every weird pause felt like another red flag. I tried to bury myself in work, but my brain kept dragging me back to that morning. To the kitchen table. To the spilled shake. To his gray face and the taste of metal on my tongue. Those shakes. God, those stupid shakes. First I'd actually been touched. Thought it was sweet, even romantic, his little energy gifts. But the truth? I never really liked them. They tasted weird. Bitter. Kind of metallic, like someone had tried to mask it with banana and honey, but didn't quite succeed. Sometimes I felt queasy after drinking one. Sometimes my head would spin. I'd forget what I was saying mid-sentence. Just wanted to lie down in a dark room and not think. And I blamed the usual suspects, work, stress, weather, age, whatever. Anything except Tom. Because how could I suspect the man who handed me those shakes with such a loving look on his face? But now the pieces were starting to click into place. How would I have explained it back then? Just bad timing. A fluke. Some mix-up with ingredients. But once the idea had been planted, it started to grow. There was something in those shakes that wasn't supposed to be there. I kept fighting it. I didn't want to believe it. But my memory kept digging up more and more strange little moments. How he always made the shake himself, never let me help. How irritated he'd get if I reached for water or tea instead. How he'd insist, come on, just try it. It'll help you bounce back. And how I, exhausted and grateful, would drink it. Because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Because I didn't think I needed to be afraid of the person handing me the glass. We never had kids. Back when Tom and I got married, kids felt like some far-off optional idea. Career first, Anna. Let's build our life first, he'd say. And I nodded, like that made perfect sense. And then, life built itself around us. Year after year we lived for work. No kids, no quiet Sundays with cereal on the floor. Just deadlines, meetings, mortgages, and business trips. And eventually, without ever saying it out loud, we both silently agreed. That train had left the station. No arguments. No drama. Just silence where laughter could have been. I told myself I was fine with that. That it was a choice I made. But lately, I'd started to wonder, was it ever really my choice? Would things have been different if I'd gotten pregnant? I tried not to think about it. Honestly, it hurt too much. There was a kind of grief in that thought. A hollow space I didn't even know was there until now. Days passed. Tom went back to playing the role of the doting husband. He brought me coffee, served my meals on a tray, smiled that same rehearsed smile. But it wasn't the same, and I couldn't keep pretending not to see it. Then one morning, he placed a glass of pale green sludge in front of me again. I made your shake. Like always. You said it helps, he said, wearing that soft, familiar expression. I hesitated. Tom, you nearly died drinking that. I'm sorry, I just can't. Even if it's a coincidence. He frowned. Anna, you know it was just a weird fluke. You felt better when you were drinking them. I just don't want to see you run down again. I gave in sort of. Okay, I'll have it later. I'm just not in the mood right now. He didn't push. Not that time. But he kept making them. Leaving them on the kitchen counter. Sometimes bringing them to the bedroom with that same expectant look. I never said no. Never made a scene. I just nod and say, thanks. I'll have it later today. He started asking if I was actually drinking them. I laughed it off light, casual. Of course I am. Just not right away. They're too heavy in the morning. But I don't forget, promise. I didn't drink a single one. Not anymore. Every time I poured them out. Sometimes I kept a sample. I rinsed the glass. Wiped the counter. Covered my tracks. He hadn't noticed. Yet. I needed answers. Real ones. Final ones. To prove I wasn't just being paranoid. Or to confirm that I absolutely wasn't. One night, after he'd passed out on the couch watching some boring show, I took his phone and slipped into the bathroom. No drama. No music swell. I just took it. Like I'd done it 100 times before. His passcode. His birthday. Cute. Lazy. And there, buried between takeout receipts and lunch tomorrow? Text, I found it. A message. How much longer is she going to keep drinking this crap? The reply came from an unlisted number. Until the end. Don't stop now. Our window is coming. Just make sure she drinks it daily. Even if she pushes back. I stared at the screen like it might explain itself. Like if I looked long enough, the words might start meaning something else. They didn't. No excuses. No, you misunderstood. No, maybe this was about someone else. If I'd been clinging to the idea that this was all just some freak coincidence, that grip shattered into pieces. This wasn't an accident. It was a plan. And Tom wasn't working alone. I didn't scream. Didn't throw plates at the wall, though let's be real, it was tempting. Instead, the next morning I made him breakfast. Tom smiled. Talked about something mundane, weather, traffic, I don't know. I smiled back. Polite. Calm. Like always. But inside, I was mapping my next move. First, search the house. Start with his office. There had to be more. Something solid. Something undeniable. Then, figure out who the partner was. This wasn't some random guy off the street. This was someone close. Someone we both knew. Someone who shook my hand. Bought me lunch. Patted Tom on the back in the break room. I had to let them both think I was still clueless. Back to being that Anna, the one they underestimated. The friendly one. The smiling one. The one who once stepped out for lunch. And came back with a promotion. One evening when Tom went to the store, I slipped into his office. I opened drawers. Dug behind folders. And there it was. A plastic container tucked in the back. Inside, a neat stack of small white bottles. No labels. No instructions. I sat on the floor and just stared at them like I'd found alien tech in my own house. These weren't supplements. These were props in someone else's movie. And I hadn't read the script. The bottles looked harmless. Too harmless. No bright labels. No wild claims like burn fat fast. Just plain white cylinders. Tiny printed codes on the bottom. Meaningless to anyone outside the circle. Picked one up. It felt almost empty. But when I shook it gently, I heard the faintest rustle. Powder. Don't sniff it, I told myself. That'd be a hell of a way to go. Died investigating her husband's sketchy protein powder. Lovely. I put it back. Kept searching. At that point, I didn't feel like a wife anymore. I felt like a detective in a low-budget crime show. Because here's the thing. Once someone betrays you like that, your survival instinct kicks in. And suddenly you're capable of things you never imagined. In the far corner of the drawer, I found his old work tablet. The one he claimed he'd lost months ago. Judging by the battery level, he'd been using it as recently as last night. It unlocked with our wedding date. Of course it did. How romantic. How utterly nauseating. I typed in a few obvious search terms. Supplements. Shake. Powder. Boom. Messages. Dozens. Maybe more. Scattered, paranoid, cryptic. Like someone who thought they were being watched. Don't overdo it. Once a day max. If she stops drinking it, warn me. No names. No photos. Just a trail of messages from a nameless source with a burner address. My heart was pounding in my chest, in my ears, in my teeth. And then I saw it. The one that stuck. The one I'll never forget. If everything goes to plan, a spot will open up in a couple months. Just keep the shakes going daily. I didn't cry. Didn't shake. Didn't scream into a towel. My brain switched into clean cold processing mode like a machine. No panic. Just facts. And those facts said one thing loud and clear. I was in danger. And I was done playing nice. I went back to the drawer. Something nasty in my gut told me to check the bottom. It was fake. A double layer. And between those two thin boards of plywood, a slim black notebook. Unlabeled. Unassuming. Inside messy handwriting, definitely not Tom's usual neat notes. Pages filled with recipes, formulas, mixing instructions. How many drops, how much powder, what order, how often. Some lines were whited out, but I could still make out bits and pieces. Gradually increased dosage. Fatigue effect. No external symptoms. Mask as exhaustion. It wasn't a journal. It wasn't a fitness log. It was a manual. I sat there, my back pressed against the wall, gripping that damn thing like it might explode in my hands. Goosebumps crawled all over my skin. I had expected to find something bad, yes, but not this cold. Not this calculated. Was he actually trying to kill me? It's not easy to let a thought like that in. It feels too wild, too dramatic, too insane to be real. But there I was, flipping through the pages of a personalized how-to guide on slowly poisoning your wife, and thinking, how the hell did I miss all of this? How do you go from building a life with someone, planning a future, sharing stupid jokes, designing your dream home, to sitting on the floor wondering how they decided you were better off dead? Why? What did I do? Where did I get in his way? I wiped my palms on my jeans and stood up. Slow. Calm. I knew then. The game had officially started, and I was done playing defense. From now on, every smile had to be a little warmer. Every word a little softer. Every glance a little more trusting. Because if the animal senses fear, it strikes first. I cleaned up. Put everything back exactly as it was. Tablet in its drawer. Bottles tucked neatly in place. And then, for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I let myself break. Just a little. I lay down on the bed, face buried in a pillow, and screamed. Not from fear. Not even from heartbreak. From fury. From the kind of soul-deep rage that doesn't come with words, only sound. Then I got up, pulled myself together, and went on with my day. When Tom came home, I smiled. Laughed at his jokes. Chatted about nothing. At work I was flawless. Not a single false note. And at home I was the picture of domestic kindness. A cup of coffee in the morning. A cozy blanket in the evening. Sprinkled with small casual questions. You know, I heard something weird the other day. Wonder where that came from. I watched him closely. Studied the shifts in his voice, the tension in his shoulders, the gaps between his sentences. I was listening between the lines now, learning a language I never wanted to know. One evening, Tom forgot to lock a folder on his laptop, and there it was, a draft email to our boss. Dear Mr. Brown, in the event that Mrs. Blake is temporarily unable to fulfill her duties due to a health concern, I would be willing to step in and manage the project. Thank you for your trust. There it was. The motive. Willing to step in. He wasn't hoping I'd need time off. He was counting on it. And suddenly I remembered something. That night, the promotion party. Everyone cheering, clapping, offering toasts. Tom stood off to the side the whole time, silent, not smiling. I'd brushed it off, figured he was tired. Or moody. I was too happy to notice anything else. But someone at work later said, he looked weird that night. Like he just lost something. I didn't think much of it back then. Now I knew. That was the moment the switch flipped. His downfall began the same night mine almost did. Only difference. I wasn't planning on going down quietly. That's when it hit me sharp and final. There was no going back. Tom had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And so had I. If he chose poison, I'd choose precision. If he chose deceit, I'd choose patience. And whoever stayed standing longest would win. The next morning I called Laura. Close friend. Worked in corporate security. Didn't ask dumb questions. Knew how to keep her mouth shut. I told her everything. Sent her photos, forwarded every file I'd copied and emailed to myself. She listened, then asked, "Are you sure you're not overreacting? Maybe they're just workout supplements." I deadpan. "If those are workout supplements, then I'm Miss Olympia. With a solid shot at dying before the finals." She promised to pull in an expert. A retired pharmacist who'd helped them investigate an illegal lab once. Apparently a reel was at decoding sketchy powders. While she got to work, I kept playing my part. Tom relaxed. Started teasing me about being burnt out. And how I should really take a break. "You're such a trooper, Anna. Take some time off. Let me handle a few projects." "I've got this," he said, all sweet and supportive. The kind of voice that used to make my heart melt. Now it just made me want to scrub my ears. He thought he was winning. You could see it in the way he moved. Like everything was going exactly as planned. Like I was still clueless. Like he already had the upper hand. Every night I slept with my phone in my hand just in case. I hadn't touched the shakes in weeks, but I knew better than to feel safe. He could have slipped something into my food. My water. Nothing in that house felt safe anymore. Each morning I checked myself like I was my own patient. Is my head clear? Is my balance okay? Are my hands steady? So far I was holding up. But I knew I couldn't keep it up forever. One way or another Tom would catch on. Or he'd get impatient. And then, it'd be game over. 2 days. That's how long I waited for Laura's message. 2 days of pretending to sleep next to the man who may or may not have been planning my slow, quiet exit from this world. When the message finally came, I just stared at it for a while. My thumb hovered over the play button like it was a trigger. Because once I heard it, there'd be no going back. It wouldn't be a suspicion anymore. It would be truth. I pressed play. "Anna," Laura said. "We broke it down. The substance targets the nervous system, memory, coordination, speech. It's slow but consistent. You don't die. You fade. Piece by piece. It's not medicine. It's controlled destruction." I didn't blink. That was it. I was living with a man who knew exactly what he was doing. And that meant he was getting ready for whatever came next. I was out of time. No tears. I didn't have the luxury. My eyes were dry, burning. I stood up and started searching the house again. Tom had gone out on errands. And I found it. Behind the bookshelf in his office, stuffed in a toolbox, under a mess of old wires. A beat-up notebook with a coffee stain on the cover. At first glance it was harmless. Handwriting I recognized, Tom's. Pages about herbal supplements. Heart rate. Sleep cycles. Then I flipped further. The handwriting got sharper. Darker. Angrier. His notes turned clinical. "Another week and liver function will show decline. Today's dose should accelerate effect. Increased dosage. She's still clueless. Full control soon." And then a chart. With dates and my symptoms. Complains of fatigue. Speech slowing, interesting. Forgot alarm code. And under the date of his hospital incident. Increased dose by 1.5x. Safe for her. Adaptation on track. My reaction. Nausea, sweating, dizziness. Recalculate. At some point I realized I was gripping the notebook so hard my fingers had gone numb. He'd been studying me. Not loving me. Not helping me. Monitoring me. Like I was some test subject in his little basement experiment. But I didn't feel rage. Not right away. Just that same cold, mechanical clarity. The kitchen clock was ticking. Leaves rustled outside like nothing had changed. Everything looked normal. And that was the most disturbing part. He came home late. Work, he said. Asked me how I was feeling. I nodded. Better. Thanks for asking. He placed a glass in front of me. I made it myself, he said. No additives. Just vitamins. I smiled. Maybe later. Maybe with lunch. He frowned, but said nothing. I couldn't afford to argue. Not now. Later, I poured the drink into a sealed jar. Labeled it. Dated it. Another sample for the evidence pile. That night he fell asleep easily. I didn't sleep at all. Everything I knew, everything I'd found had to become a case file. So I started small, a spreadsheet. Symptoms. His notes. Screenshots of texts. Tablet messages. Photos of the shakes. Photos of his notebook. Lab report from Laura's contact. Her voice memo. Our chat. His motive. A screenshot of that draft email to our boss, where he offered to take my place once I got too sick to work. And then I remembered something. A scene I'd shrugged off at the time. Company retreat. Our boss Mark had raised a glass and smiled. This year, I especially want to recognize Anna. Thanks to her leadership, we landed our biggest contract to date. She's a star. I know the whole team, especially our veterans, are proud to work with her. There was a pause. Mark scanned the room. Landed on Tom. Someone nearby gave Tom a pitying glance. And Tom? He didn't say a word. Just smiled crooked tight and looked down. Our eyes met for half a second. And I swear I saw it then. That flash of resentment. Of hate. I hadn't given it a second thought at the time. Now it was all I could see. Maybe that's when it broke. Maybe that was the moment he realized he couldn't stand being second. I flipped to a clean page. Wrote down one more name. Not a guess. Not a suspicion. I knew. I'd seen it in one of Tom's tablet entries. Discussed dosage with James. He said absorption smoother via digestion. Calculated everything. James Hunter. The just an assistant guy. The one who always said I looked a little burnt out. With that smirk. James had worked at the company for 10 years. Always in the background. Polite. Quiet. Helpful. Everyone thought he just made PowerPoints and fetched reports. But at meetings he'd slip in barbs. Didn't Anna suggest that a few months ago? Subtle. But the message was clear. I wasn't original. Just lucky. Just convenient. I'd brushed it off. Thought he just didn't like me. I had no idea how deep it went. Now I remembered it all. How after one of my presentations, he accidentally swapped in the wrong file before a board review. How at the coffee machine he'd mumble things like, "It's not just charisma that matters. Brains too." While staring right at me. How he always just forgot to send key documents on time. Then smiled. Oops. Didn't know it was urgent. All wrapped in fake friendliness. And once I heard him joking, "I know my way around powders too." Back then I laughed. Now, sounded like a confession. Turns out he studied pharmacology. Dropped out after year 3. Took a class in toxicology. Dabbled in DIY formulas. It wasn't obvious. But if you dug just a little, it became horrifyingly clear. He'd been bitter ever since Mark chose me for the position he wanted. 3 years ago. Later, in court, it came out that Tom had promised him a better role. If I stepped aside. And James? He said yes. I put everything together in a neat folder. No drama. No breakdowns. And the next morning I walked it into the police station. "I'm not here for a wellness check," I said. "I'm here because I want to be protected. Here's the evidence. Here's the substance. Here are the records. Here's the plan." The investigator flipped through in silence. He stopped on the notebook. "This his handwriting?" "Yes. His words. His phrasing. You understand this may be considered attempted murder?" I nodded. "I understand." They arrested Tom a week later. In his car they found forged medical documents with my name, fake diagnoses, fake treatment plans. On a flash drive, videos of him explaining cognitive decline as a method of control. James was arrested that same night. He stayed silent. Until they found the messages. She can't find out. Check the dose. You're the only one she trusts. The investigation took 6 months. Half a year of interviews, subpoenas, lab results, and silence between the lines. The story blew up. Articles, blogs, headlines. Tom denied everything, of course. Kept spinning the same lines over and over. It was a misunderstanding. There's no real proof. She made it all up. Right up until the end. Even in court he had the nerve to smile at me. That same smug, performative smile. She's lost it, he told the jury. This is insane. I loved her. I still love her. I was trying to help. But then the judge read from his notebook. Another week in liver failure symptoms should begin. Today's dose should increase the effect. And that was it. He snapped. Yes, I wrote that. Because she took everything. You want the truth? I worked. I built that damn company while she smiled in meetings and cashed the bonuses. No one saw me. No one cared. And her? I didn't want to kill her. She was just supposed to get out of the way. Just disappear. He was still shouting when the bailiffs dragged him out of the room. Tom and James both got the full sentence. No early release. No leniency. Their names were scrubbed from office doors, business cards, even old projects they'd spent years building. They tried to erase me and ended up erasing themselves. As for me, I'm okay. Really. The company offered me a lead role on a new international project. People who once pretended I didn't exist suddenly wanted to hear what I had to say. Maybe some still whispered behind my back. Didn't matter. I didn't look over my shoulder anymore. I didn't wait for the next betrayal. I didn't explain myself. I just moved forward, on a road that finally belonged to me. And life came back. In the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. In the music blasting from my car stereo. In the quiet laugh on the other end of a phone call. In the people who showed up, not with poison but with light. I didn't become a victim. I didn't become some bitter avenger. I just got out. And I kept going. Head high. Mind clear. Alive. What do you think? Did I handle it right? Would you have done something differently? Tell me in the comments, I'd honestly love to know. And if you're into stories like this, hit subscribe. There's more to come.